to start. That's it. We're on the way. We can go. Does anyone have a specific question for me to clear up? Or would you like me to start just explaining again what all needs to be done and then ask questions as we go? Alyssa, I see you've got a hand raised. Please go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Thank you.
Perfect. I don't know if you have already said this, and if you have, I do apologize, but I just want to clarify, do our references count and our headings count towards our word count?
No. So when I say your references don't count, I don't mean what you are saying about your people. I'm talking about the things in brackets. So let's say you said Smith 2021. That will not count as 2 words towards your word count. And your headings also don't count as part of that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
No problem. I'm going to start with question 1 just to talk you through it. I'm not going to go through all the detail. But what I want you to understand here, because this is where you're taking parts of a lesson plan, what is vital for you to be aware of is that every single time you link anything of your lesson plan to pragmatism as a concept, you will have to reference it. Because ultimately, what is this module about? It's teaching you what different philosophies are and how they form the foundation of education, hence the name. So in this specific activity, you need to create a lesson plan and explain to me how the relevant aspects that they want you to do relate to pragmatism. So every time that you make that link, I will want to know from you, where did you find out that that is how it works in pragmatism? So just to make sure that you get that. So please make sure that you find your sources. It is a great pity that I, maybe afterwards, I have created a set of slides of feedback that I did with my 4th years, because I've already given them feedback on assignment 1. And I think it might be worth the while for me to just bring those slides up as well. I won't discuss everything because it's their percentages and things like that. But if I could just indicate some of the common errors that were made so that those of you that's present in the meeting don't go and repeat that. Quite a few of them were reference related. So let's just quickly go through what is it that you need to do. So you're going to have to create a lesson plan. In your lesson plan, you do not follow the template that you guys use for TESF. So please don't think you've got to do a full-on lesson plan. You are welcome to use a lesson plan that you've used before, because you're going to have to adjust it to make it pragmatic by nature. So first of all, you're going to tell me the grade that you've chosen. So within the PGCE space, the expectation is that you are going to choose the subject that you are specializing to go and teach. So that's the second one sorted out. So when you tell me about the grade, these are just some considerations. You don't have to answer all of this. It just helps understand where it's coming from. So you are going to have to explain to me, why is that grade level relevant to pragmatism? On the left-hand side of the slide is the actual question, which says, grade and subject. Why is pragmatism a suitable philosophy for the chosen grade and the subject? So there's many things that you would be able to say with regards to grade. Think of the psychological level that they're at in that grade. So let's say you've got grade 10s. So they're typically your 15, 16-year-olds. By that time, they've already mastered the ability to accept that there's a world outside themselves, and they start questioning a lot. When they get to around about 17, by matric, it's silly to do this with matrics because they're just focusing on finishing the syllabus. But your 10s and 11s, they are on the point in their lives where they like to question a lot. And they like to test things. So You could do it with grade 8s and 9s. I'm not saying that you can't do it. I mean, my foundation phase students had to do this lesson based on foundation phase. And I just found it to be helpful if you stop and think of how will the principles of pragmatism align with the children of that age's ability. So just stop and think a little bit of how that works. When it comes to the subject, we know that certain subjects lend themselves more towards certain theories. Maths would not typically be one that I can do this in, yet you could make it work. There's no philosophy that you cannot use in whatever subject it is that you are teaching. So that's what that is all about. The next step then goes 3 objectives. Please, guys, do not give more than 3 objectives because then you're writing too much. Remember, question 1's got no word limit. They did not indicate word limit because it's going to depend on your descriptive style. Please remember, you are taking your objectives from the CAPS document. You might not be taking them word for word from the CAPS document, but yeah, sorry, I'm just quickly responding to Annie asking me if all is okay. Just in case she wanted her groups to join as well. So although your objective might not come word for word from the CAPS document, you are still basing it on the CAPS document. And as such, you need to be able to reference it. Sorry, I just want to pause there because Annie's let me know via WhatsApp that she cannot hear me. Can I please just have a thumbs up? Is the sound clear? Can you clearly hear me? Okay, so lots of thumbs up. I just wanted to let her know because she's seriously concerned now. Bontle, do you want to go ahead and ask your question or what? Okay, now she's just put her hands up. Okay, just wanted to make sure that's it. So that then takes care of your objectives. So first of all, you've got to give me an objective, reference the CAPS doc. I'll let you talk now, Sasha. I just want to finish this slide. Then you need to tell me, how does that objective align with pragmatism? So go look at the key words that you are using there. So evaluate whether the objective prioritizes active engagement, experiential learning, that type of thing. So that's what you're going to do with the alignment. And then you're going to justify how each objective aligns with the philosophy and of pragmatism. It kind of like blends together. You don't have to have it as a separate heading. Provide for me a rationale. So that's part of our lesson plan template. There's the rationale section there. Go look at it and see for yourself, how does this rationale for your lesson indicate that this lesson is based on the tenets of pragmatism? Remember, ultimately, pragmatism is about holistic development. So we want the children to do critical thinking. They're not doing critical thinking as in critical theory, but as in question. Why is something the way they are? A typical thing that we would use here could be case studies. I don't know if someone had their hand up. Their hands are down now. If at a later stage, please feel free to ask questions. So it's 3 objectives and then 2 teaching strategies. So you have got to explain to me your teaching strategy. Act as though I don't know what a teaching strategy is. You are welcome to use your Killian textbook that comes from your SFTL module. You can obviously also use any other source for your teaching strategy that you've decided you want to do. So first explain the strategy to me and then tell me, how does that strategy align with pragmatism? If you do it that way, it is going to help you to understand. And remember, you've got to have 2. Number them. Strategy 1, explain it, link it to pragmatism. Strategy 2, explain it, link it to pragmatism. Then the next big one thing is just one activity. So now you need to create an activity that is based on your objectives and the whole lesson plan that you want to do. You're going to describe the activity to me. Now, yeah, when you do your describing of your activity, I don't foresee you doing much reference unless you're referencing a specific source out of which you are taking something. Let's say in the business studies textbook, there's this case study and that's what you want to do. Then obviously you will do that. So first, that's the big point. You're going to describe that activity. Then you're going to tell me, how does this activity align with pragmatism? And then very, very importantly, students, when it comes to a lesson plan, let's say I'm your supervisor. I'm going to come and sit and watch you teach. What is it that I'm going to look for? I, as the supervisor, want to see, can you achieve your objectives? And how do I do that? By going and looking at the things that they do, therefore the activity that you are doing. So it is very important that you have an integration with your lesson objectives. That's basically the purpose behind an activity. So that is just in a nutshell what it is that you need to all do. So although this is not in the format of an essay, we are still expecting you to do things a certain way. You still need to have full sentences and so forth. You're welcome to use bullets under your things, or numbers for like objectives. That's not a problem at all, just so that you get the idea of what it is to do. So as a quick summary, for 5 marks, you're going to tell me the grade, give me at least 2 things why it's suitable to pragmatism. Then you're going to explain the subject and why it is suitable. We move on to objectives. This is not literally how the 10 marks are made up, because we're marking on a rubric. We're not actually marking tick, tick, tick. But I wanted to show this because for some people, especially those with a very analytical brain, this kind of helps. So you will basically get a mark for your objective, then a link for linking it with pragmatism and telling me how does it all integrate with each other. So if you don't want to understand the justification, give me 2 reasons why that objective is suitable to pragmatism and you'll be on the right track. If you do it for 3 of them, we then get to our 10 mark. Next, you've got to give me 2 teaching strategies. So you're going to have teaching strategy 1. Again, it's not literally 3 and 4 marks. This is just to help some of you to understand what it is that you need to do. So explain the teaching strategy, such as maybe you want to do a case study. And the case study is on something that is relevant in the world as it's going on now. I would imagine in a subject such as economics or business studies, at the moment, this whole hoo-ha with Trump and some of the stock exchanges taking a dive, how is that affecting it? So that would be a brilliant description. You would use a case study. Why is it linked to pragmatism? It is based on what's currently happening in the world. Therefore, it directly affects them. It's going to help them to critically analyze it and to understand how the actions of others affect the world around us. I'm just making something up, but that gives you an idea of a case study. So you would do then the same with strategy 2. Then you would get your activity that you're going to do. Like I said, you need to describe it for me. What exactly is it that the children are going to be doing? After that, you are then going to justify for me, how does that link up with pragmatism? And very importantly, how does that work with your objectives? Now, the working with the objectives is part of pragmatism, so that I don't just teach you something and you're not doing anything with it. You actually, like as in if I was now your school teacher, you would be able to apply what I'm trying to teach you all in one go. So a summary of the whole lot on one slide. So it's grade and subject, 3 objectives, 2 strategies, 1 activity. The rubrics are there. I've shared these slides with you guys before, but they are there if you want to see them. I think now we're moving on to the question that most people are a little bit worried about, because this is a little bit tricky. So the instructions tell us that it's a critical educational theorist. They start off with a statement about Paulo Freire, and he says these bullets are the things that are hampering, with other words, preventing social progression to take place within our learners. So these are the things we should not be doing. Then the question goes, and they say, after reading that, you need to write an academic research essay of not more than 1,000. Remember, after this was set, we've agreed as the lecturers of FOED that we allow up to 1,100. So please do not go over that. If you exceed your word count, I only mark to the relevance. So I stop at 1,100 word count. If you go over that, it means that your conclusion is most likely now being ignored because it's not part of the actual thing. Yes, Keanu, the session is recorded. If you look on the top left, there's like a red dot in the circle. That's how we know it's recorded. So it's very important that you stick to your word count. So let's go look at what is it that you actually have to do. So first of all, I'm not going to explain this again. The video explains it very carefully. So a research essay is not a normal academic essay. It is a slightly different way of doing something. So you need to have a critical discussion, and that means it must be based on something that you've researched. Now, guys, looking at two sources is not research. Someone is saying something. Let me quickly say. Tara says, it tells me only 5 minutes are being recorded, so that was I joined late. Okay, I'm not sure, but it's been recording from the start go. So what is problematic here is that some students look at this and they think, okay, if they look at two sources, it's sufficient. I would say a minimum of 3, maybe a maximum of 5 or 6. But this is truly a critical discussion of other people's viewpoints, the arguments that they raise, and the evidence that they provide. So this essay really requires you to do serious higher order thinking. So find articles that relate to the topic for you. What is our topic again? We'll see just now. And make sure that when you do the discussion thereof, that you need to, in each of the subsections of this essay, you need to give me at least 3 references, because if you don't, you are not critically engaging with your material, and therefore you're not giving me a critical discussion. You are simply reporting to me what other people have stated. So just to make sure that you get that right. So let's go through the instructions of what it is that you need to do. We start off with a definition of what critical pedagogy is and discuss key principles of critical pedagogy. So 2 aspects. First, give me a definition of it. Critical pedagogy is quite different from normal pedagogy because it's a type of style that we want to teach the children to be able to do. And then obviously the discussion of the key principles. Most sources identify 3 critical principles. I personally have found in the past it makes it very difficult if you want to go into each one of those 3 in detail. It becomes too much, and then you go over the word count. That is why the word count is what it is, because you've got to carefully think of what it is that you need to say, and part of critical analysis is determining what are the true facts that we've got to focus on. So as I've stated here, a clear definition. How is critical pedagogy different from normal one? And then you would have been able to do that. When it comes to the critical or not the critical, the key principles of it, we just define some of the principles for me. You could say to me, there are 3. If you find 3 and you say, in this essay, you will be focusing on 2, and then that's it. So explain how each of these principles that you've identified contributes to fostering critical thinking. So the documents that discuss this is actually quite clear on how this actually helps people, not just students, but people to critically think. So if possible, try to give me at least 1 example or a scenario of the key principle and how would it basically look like in the classroom. That's what this section is about. Then the next section. You guys must not think that these 5 points are your subheadings. It's not. These 5 points are just typically what we would use when we do a critical analysis. So the instruction is write a critical analysis of the implications of critical pedagogy for educational transformation. Students forget that last bit. They tend to just tell me what's the implications of critical pedagogy. They don't tell me how will that actually change education. And that's the key focus here. So that's where students tend to make a mistake. So ideas, these 5 points are just some ideas. So what do you think are the implications for educational transformation? How will you integrate the theory that you've now read in your sources to these ideas? And then how will critical engagement work with all of that? Can you give me insightful reflections? So you basically tell me what the different people say, and then can you reflect on it? Because part of the reflection is telling me how you assume it's going to affect education in future. And that is what it's all about. So number 5, you do share your own insight, but most of the essay is based on the opinions of others. It's only in the reflective stage that you do. So I'm not saying you're not allowed to use first person. You can, but take note. The focus is more on what the other people are saying than what you are saying. So again, very much it's a high mark here. 10 out of the 50 marks go for your academic essay, your structure, and so forth. Please take note, you need to use subheadings. I've marked quite a few, so when I'm finished with this, I'll share with you the feedback that I did with the other students. A lot of students did not use the correct layout. If you go look at your rubric, the rubric states the use of subheadings. So if you gave me an essay without any subheadings, you will get a lower mark when it comes to academic writing because you're not giving me what the rubric basically wants. So please make sure that your paragraphs are correct. I had students that those subheadings that you had in assignment 1, that they would write like 2/3 of a page as one paragraph. Now, it's not possible because basic academic standard says one idea per paragraph. So if you are only giving me one idea in that whole paragraph, you are repeating yourself constantly to explain the one idea. And that's not at all that was the case. So please, students, be very careful. Make sure it's better to have lots of smaller paragraphs than one very big one. I'm not saying you're not allowed to use long paragraphs, but seriously, when a paragraph goes to 1/3 of a page, there's a bit of a problem because you cannot talk 1/3 of a page on one point. You need to make many different points because you are limited in your word count. So please take note, academic writing skills are in play. As I had to explain to the other students that I've given feedback to, please take note, I don't expect you to use super fancy English. Normal English is fine, but I'm looking at, are you using it formally? Are we doing slang type of words? Are you making contractions? That type of thing. That's what we're looking for. I'm not looking for top-notch fancy English. And then please take note, you need to reference properly. If you don't reference properly, I need to flag you. Well, I don't flag you for referencing, I take off marks. And quite a few students lost 5 to 10% for referencing. And that is what I would like to just explain it to you, because what worked out quite nice in my other class that I gave feedback to, because remember, they face-to-face and they younger because they're 4th years. So I could actually show them examples of where they went wrong. So I'm going to show that for you guys just now. So please take note, AI is a big thing, people. We are tracking it. Our Turnitin system allows us to see an AI percentage. I'm not saying don't use AI, but be careful how you use it. You need to use AI to create ideas. So when you ask ChatGPT, don't ask it to write it for you. What would be the key aspects I could discuss? Now we're looking at it because it should be giving you bullets. And when you describe those bullets in your own words, now it's not a high AI percentage. But what we are finding is we're getting students, because our AI system on Turnitin gives me 2 marks. So it gives me a total mark for AI percentage. And then it also splits it, when I click on the report, it splits it into just AI work as well as a paraphrasing tool. So that one becomes like a purpley color. So it's really important that you be careful of that. And please take note, you are supposed to reference AI. I'm not sure if you guys have been, if the information specialist shared that with you. If not, remind me. I can definitely share it on the WhatsApp group, because I shared it with my 4th years today, that if you are going to use AI, you need to justify it. The problem that we have with that is, remember, this module is very much based on the facts of other people. So you cannot really reference a fact by AI, because it's not a proven fact. So just be very careful of that. My suggested layout, I did not go into word allocations here, but if you want me to, I can quickly try and talk you around it. This would be my suggested layout. You do not have to follow it like that. You can definitely, under number 2, at 2.2 and 2.3, you could have subheadings if you want to. But your introduction and your conclusion is generally in the region of 50 to 100 words. You're just basically explaining to me, how is this essay going to work? What is the focus of it? What is the thesis statement, that type of thing? And the conclusion is just basically summarizing what was the purpose of the essay. So if you take those 2 away, you're looking at critical pedagogy, which is not a very big section. I would say that could probably be in the region of maybe 200 or 300 words. And the rest of it should go for 2.3, which is the implications of educational transformation. Again, I'm not telling you 100% that's the word count. I'm giving you guidelines, because from the sounds of it, a lot of students felt that they benefited from me giving them guidance on how to do it. So let me quickly upload the other slides that I feel that it would benefit you to be aware of, or for me to share with you. I'm just not going to be able to share these slides with you specifically because they don't relate to your class. There's like mark analysis and things like that. So I'm not going to go through that, but I will be able to give you a nice overview of typical mistakes that were made. So the referencing, let's just go to referencing errors that were made. So a lot of the students in that group complained because I subtracted 5 marks or 10 marks for referencing, and they didn't understand why. So basically, in the next couple of examples, it's from their work, their names are not there, so it's fine for me to share it with you. But students, please take note, this reference that you can see on the left side, I'm not going to give you the stats that's on the right side, is actually APA referencing. We use the same thing. Most referencing styles, you will do in-text referencing like that. So you will have your bracket, if I talk nice and slowly so you can hear me, you'll have an open bracket. There's no space before the N of Ndlovu. The bracket hugs the N. It sounds silly. I cannot tell you how many people made that mistake. Then after the surname, there's a comma. There's not a space and then a comma. Straight after the U of Ndlovu goes the comma. Now goes a space, then goes the year, then goes the closing bracket. So here are examples that I shared with them. So if you guys are welcome to use the chat function. So I actually wanted them to tell me, where do they see errors? So let's see if you guys can identify reference errors. That's all that we're focusing on here. Full stop before the in-text. There we go. Perfect. Elizabeth, go for it. Talk.
Sorry, I was going to say the same, but I can't. I can't access the chat. So the other lady said it for me.
Okay, awesome. Okay, can you see the chat at least?
Yes, I can see it. Thanks.
Okay, cool. So yes, that is exactly what's happened over here. So like I said over there, I underlined it for them so that they could clearly see the same mistake was made twice. So they were very upset because remember, these students had their work in way before you needed to. So I don't have to explain that to you. What's the error here?
The
And lots of
initials.
Using
yes.
the initial.
Perfect. Lots of my PGCE students did this. So that's it. The referencing with the initials of the authors. Please, that must not be. The second one was not a problem, but that one was problematic. So, this is an important one. Let's see if you guys can pick up what's going on here.
There's no referencing?
There's no referencing whatsoever. And Daka was saying to them, this is more than half a page. So based on our referencing style, so in the start of each of your assignment, there's those things with all the little blocks. Okay. So when you use those little blocks, you will see them. When do I take off 5%? When do I take off 10%? When it's a small section without a reference. So to me, a small section is about a quarter of a page. Obviously, if you've got many quarter of pages, there's a problem. But this was more than half a page. So this student lost 10% for referencing. There's a lot of wrong. Yeah, definitely it's there. So let's just go and see where the student could have used references. It was just sort of, yeah, this English was very shocking. But yeah. So the first one that's a mistake is they tell me idealism is. Well, it's not a mistake, but the fact that the first bit could be regarded as the student's opinion. But the minute you tell me pragmatism is, or pragmatism states, or a teacher's role, like the next one, those are all aspects that are characteristics of that philosophy. So I want to know from you, but where did you read it? What source did you use to determine that? Realism emphasizes against the Z's. It drives me crazy. So yeah, they're telling me how realism or what realism is all about. So it's a factual point. Where is the reference? The same again with idealism focuses on. It tells me what it is. Again, idealism has moral and justice and so forth. So just to show you, that is where it is. Now, for some bizarre reason, some students, I don't know if they were taught this in the past, have got this notion you reference every third sentence. So I had to actually take stuff like this and explain to them, listen, it doesn't matter how many times you say whatever. Every single time you make an academic statement, with other words, you're stating a fact that is, like Piaget says, or Bronfenbrenner's theory has got 5 circles. Where did you learn that? So yes, the other major problem that we have is they also tend to just reference at the end of a paragraph. And our reference blocks tell us when that happens, it's automatically 5% off. So just be careful with that thing, because you need to, whenever you make a statement, and let's say my statement was Piaget, and my next sentence is also Piaget. The way you get around from doing Piaget 71 is you will state off, I would start it off with, according to Piaget, in brackets 1971, this and this and this happened, comma, he also stated that. Now I'm giving you 2 facts from the same source in one sentence. But if you end your sentence and the next thing is also factual, I'm sorry, you're going to have to reference that. I also don't want you, because remember, we're busy with critical thinking. You cannot also reference every single sentence, because then it's what I was saying at one time in Afrikaans, we call it a blokkies kombers. You're giving me little bits of everybody else, but nothing of yourself. And ultimately, I'm supposed to give you a mark based on your understanding of these philosophies. So be careful of that one. Okay. Very common one. What did we do wrong here? This was the most common reference mistakes that everybody made.
No space between the comma and the year.
There we go. That no space between the comma and the year. So that one, Dewey, they got right, but the rest they got wrong. So it just kind of helps you to understand that. Then the layout. And students were like, but why am I faffing so about a layout? And why does the layout have to be perfect? And I was actually saying to them, so the example I used, I'll show you guys a picture of it now. You give grade 6s, it doesn't matter what language you're teaching them, you're telling them to write a dialogue for you. Are you going to mark the one on the left? No. You're going to say that's not the format. You might end up giving the child some marks, but you're going to penalize this child quite heavily because the layout is incorrect. So the correct layout is the one on the right-hand side. It's actually not 100% correct because there should also be spaces between the different people, but I couldn't fit it all on a slide. And for the very same reason, we need to abide by the rules. In our document, it actually tells you you have to have 1.5 line spacing. You need to have clear paragraphing. You need to have certain margins and contents pages and so forth. Then the argument is, but nowhere does it say I have to have a cover page and a contents page. So the example that I used then, and I'm saying to them, if I tell you to write me an essay, do I still have to say to you, remember, a sentence is going to start with a capital letter and it ends with a full stop or some form of punctuation? No, I don't tell you that anymore because I'm assuming at this level of academics, you are aware of that. And unfortunately, what I've realized, that is not always the case. So now I'm explaining it in simple terms why layout is important. So let me give you some examples of layout mistakes. So this is a layout of a student that submitted a Word document. So when you submit a Word document, the pages jump on the system. It did it on VC Learn. It also does it on ARC. So if the student had saved it as a PDF and uploaded the PDF, it would have been so much better because then we would have been able to easily see what's going on. So this is about a third of a page that the things go down. Now, obviously, the student's not losing marks for that. But if I don't show you what it looks like on my side, it becomes problematic. So this student then, if we can go back to this, some errors, same story all over again, all these initials. While I'm using this as a teaching platform, we might as well go on. Another layout issue is this. So this is the incorrect way of a table of contents. So let me use the laser point. So this is fine. The page number is fine. The first three, I can't do the circle key so well, is fine. This is problematic. That's problematic. That one's problematic. We do not provide a range of pages. Open any textbook and it's going to give you the starting page of it. When you go in a textbook, some textbooks in the back of the textbook, they've got like certain terminologies. That is going to give you a range so that you know where that terminology is being used, like a vocabulary type of list. But in general, table of contents, you don't give a range. Do you lose marks for it? No, but you might as well just learn how to do these things properly. So this is a major problem that popped up. These black lines indicate the edge of the student's page. So this student made use of narrow margins. And that's also not academic writing. But if that was not bad enough, I nearly had a heart attack. And most of the people that did incorrect sources made use of zone of education. So please take note, it's not a credible source. I'm going to give you an explanation just now why it's not a credible source. On top of that, this student is not spelling the zone word correct. So please, this does not count. I'm going to give you a breakdown just now as to why I'm saying that is not a credible source. So here is that very same document that is discussing Idealism, Philosophy of Education. So I know it's small, you might not see it on the screen, but over here, it actually tells us a year ago. So we kind of know this was published in 2024. And this is the author that wrote it. So why can I not use something such as Zone of Education? Well, first of all, no peer review take place. So what is peer review? That is when other people that are also an expert in the field actually fact check. Did you write nonsense or did you actually talk the truth? So they check that things are correct. Experts in this field check it. The authorship is not very clear. They say that dude wrote it, but anyone could have written it because it's not being, it's like Wikipedia. You could change it and nobody would actually know. It's a weak reference. So why do we need to give a reference? So when we did the reference mistakes just now, I pointed out to you in the one slide, when do we reference? And I said, whenever we make an academic claim. So why do I reference? Because that reference gives value to the point I'm trying to make. It gives credibility to it. It puts its weight behind it. When I do something such as Zone of Education, I'm actually doing the opposite. I'm removing the validity of the argument because you are stating to me now, for argument's sake, idealism is a philosophy that focuses more on the head than the body. And now you go Zone of Education. What you're saying to me when I see this is you are giving me a fact based on a source that's not credible. So is your fact now actually a fact? No, it's not. So that is why you've got to be very careful of the types of sources you use. So here is an example of a credible source. So what makes it credible? First of all, we can see the date that it was published. We can see the author, but very important, we can also see the affiliation. This person is a professor at the University of Virginia. That automatically covers a little bit more weight than just some person on a website that's not being checked. On top of that, this is Cambridge University Press. So we know it's a reputable one. But to top it all off, this is the Review of International Studies. So it's not just because the University of Virginia is in America, as far as I can remember, or I don't know where it is, wherever it is, it's in one country. The international studies, they check, there's a whole board of people that sit and check it. So I can use whatever this person is saying to me with comfort and know that I'm not going to get into trouble because he's actually backing up what I'm saying. And that was the big feedback that I got. Maybe something that you guys could also benefit from is just a discussion, because why is philosophy difficult? Why do we struggle with it? If you go and Google search it, you'll find stacks of articles on that. What makes it difficult is because we are using abstract concepts. It's not stuff that we deal with every single day. Plus, you are being judged on an NQF 7 level, which is what all your other stuff is. But remember, this was aimed at 4th years. So when I look at NQF 7 level, I'm looking for critical thinking. I'm looking for good referencing skills and that you are supporting your facts. And are you giving me analytical writing? You're not just describing source A said that, source B said that, and so forth. So the rest of the stats is not really important. Just also, since I've got you guys and we've got a few minutes to spare, the people that are not in my group, I'm sorry, this might not relate directly to you, but I found it really hard on the new system to tick. I'm going to show you guys with the laser. This is literally what it looks like when I tick on it. You've got no idea, and I'm left-handed on top of it as well. So to make ticks with a mouse is really not that easy. So what I've done is I would make notes for you on the right, on my side, it looks like on the right-hand side. I would make comments on what it is that you did, and then I would paste a table for you that contains everything of the rubric. And it tells you exactly, our rubrics for this module are so specific. They tell you exactly what it is that you need to do. And this is why I've got the picture of Sheldon. It's like, why? And then, oh, okay, that's why. So you need to go and sit with your work and see, but where is it that you went wrong? And if you are one of the people here that's unhappy about your marks, in our next session, I'm more than willing to have a one-on-one session. I can put aside an hour and say, okay, all those that want to see what they did wrong, ask me, and I can join you in an online session, and we can then go through it and see where did you go wrong so that I can pinpoint. Obviously, the ideal would be for us to do it before your next assignment is due. So on the WhatsApp group, Jess, are you in here? She's my class rep. So if Jess can maybe just let me know or remind me, I'm very happy to do a list like that in which I can then take you step by step through your paper. So if you got no special comments and things, it means that most of your work was actually pretty good. So there we go. We've all sorted that out, and you guys don't need to understand the rest. Okay, that brings me to the end of what I wanted to present. If anyone has got questions with regards to assignment 2, you are welcome to ask me the question. Duran says, where do we view the marks? Okay, so some of the students I don't know if you are one, I don't think you are one of my students. Maybe ask your fellow students. They actually very nicely on my group explain to the others where to find it, because I would also not know where to do it. So Pumla is saying, thank you for the clarity. I'm one of the PGC students who is struggling with citing. Perfect. Okay, I'm very happy to maybe over the course of this coming weekend, I don't know, do you have classes on a Monday? I don't have classes on a Friday or a Monday because I'm busy with my PhD. So I'm very happy if you want me to go through referencing with you, I'm willing to do that if that's going to help you to not lose marks or something like that. Annie is our one of our management people. She says, if a student received 0, it might mean that your assignment is under investigation. So it means that you've been flagged. So when we as lecturers see something like a very high similarity percentage or a high AI, we then flag it, and then someone from the information specialist group will then investigate it. Sometimes they come back and say to me, no, this is actually pretty okay. Then I can go ahead and mark it, which means your mark will then have to change. Alternatively, they will send an email to you stating you've been flagged. This is the situation. And from the day that you get the letter, you will then have 5 working days to resubmit it. And then I go and mark those again. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Is the template available for everyone? What template? Okay, so Rose, you've also done it. Let's see if I have not, because I don't normally work on. Yes, I'm going to quickly see if I can create a poll with some possible times for students. And the template that's in the slides, like the one that I did with you guys now, basically just this is the suggested layout. That's the template. It's not actually a template for you to fill in. It's just to give you guidance. I'm going to start a poll just for letting you guys choose. Okay, so I'm going to have a reference workshop. So the one would be Friday. Okay, so those people that are interested in doing a reference workshop with me, basically just so that I can help you with that, the reference workshop can also be where you can then have the option to look at your work. That would also help if I do that. No, it won't. Sorry, I'm contradicting myself, because in a workshop, I can't have everybody's assignments open because that would be unethical. So if you want to do a workshop for referencing, let me know which of these times will suit you better, and then based on that I can then create something with you, and we can go there. So I've had 7 responses. It seems the overall agreement is for Friday's session. So I will set up a session. I will share the link with you. There were changes, so we'll see where the final one is. And then I will share the link. I see Annie's also here, so I assume some of her students and Monica's also in the session. I'm happy to share that link. So anyone that wants to just touch on referencing again, I'm happy to do that just to make sure everything is clear. And then on another time, I'm happy to take students step by step through their assignments, those that are really, but before you just ask me to take you through things, maybe first go through by yourself and check, where did you go wrong? Go look at the rubric, go look, where did I plot you on that rubric? And then that is going to be the key one. So Rose, if you're available, anyone, just vote somewhere so I can see the votes, please. It sounds like most of you will prefer Friday. Okay, so guys, let's just make it. I will send the link out for Friday sessions. I will share it with the other lecturers on the platform as well. Take note, I'm by all not saying I'm an expert in referencing, but at least those that's really struggled or that lost marks because of referencing, I can definitely help you to understand where you are losing the marks so that you don't repeat that for assignment 2. Is the source from the, yes, we don't, it's only in research as a module. So if you are busy doing a thesis or something like that, that you're going to have a time limit, like for argument's sake, I don't allow my 4th years that I teach research to, they're not allowed to use sources older than 5 years for the study that they do. So that's for their background and things like that, because they've got to do stuff related to education. So it's got to be up to date. But this is philosophy, guys. This is the subject that's been around the longest of all subjects in the world. Well, maybe not religion. Maybe religion is older. But you can definitely use sources older than the 2000s, 90s, 80s. I think in the 70s, we're looking at a bit of a problem. But if you find a good source and it makes sense to you, we don't limit you with source age in philosophy. Okay, I think we are done. So if there are no further questions, please feel free to leave the session. If there is anyone, I'm not going to stop the recording until everybody's out of the session, in case someone might have a question that they pop up right at the end. So please have a good evening for the rest of it. Stay safe and work hard on whatever it is that you're working with. I know it's not just my module that you've got assignments for. So good luck with all of that. Will the slides be available? I've shared these slides with people, but what I will do is I will share it via email with the other lecturers that are present, the recording of this, as well as the slides that I used for tonight. And well, actually, what I will do is I will share the video link, the YouTube link with our other lecturers, so they don't still have to go and put it up. I'll put it up and then it's all together. But I'm not going to do it tonight. I'll probably only be dealing with it roundabout on Thursday or Friday. Okay, brilliant. Take care, everyone. Rose says, with who have not received our assignments, how long can be? I don't know why you would not have received it yet. Our marks all had to be in by last night. So operations would have started looking today at it. I would imagine probably give them, I would imagine by Friday you should have your results. If you don't have results by Friday, you will definitely have received a letter if you were flagged for something. Oh, wonderful. Annie gave us the answer. She says she chatted to them and they said it will definitely be released by the end of this weekend. So thank you for that. Okay, I still have 30 students present, so I'm assuming that someone's still got questions somewhere along the line. I'm very glad that you found it helpful. I try to be clear. I think it also helps that I teach this to so many different campuses that I feel like I'm repeating myself, but then when I start giving feedback, I can actually pick up the typical mistakes that get made. So it's very helpful to be able to have these Q&A sessions. I think it's safe for me now to stop the recording. It doesn't look like there are any more questions that's popping up. Thank you so much.